Okay, let's talk about the glory that are Slump and Hump molds. They are two different types of molds that I want you guys to make, and this is actually going to be for our exposed coil exterior and exposed interior coils. So for both of these forms, we're going to be thinking about what we want to do in terms of what's going to look best for both exposed interior and exposed exterior. So when we're looking at something like this, this is going to be really good for an exposed interior, because one of the things that we see more than anything is literally just that you can see the inside really well, and the outside tends to be a little bit below view. So this is going to be really good for us to make a slump mold, meaning that when we take our or I'm sorry, I should say, this is going to be our hump mold. And so when we take our clay and put it over the top, we're putting it over a hump, okay? This one, which is a funky looking football, I actually made a mold earlier and poured some plaster in, and then I get this form. And so now I can actually go back and build my coils over the top of this, and everything that's on the inside, I will still be able to see the patterns of my coils. Okay, and I'll give you guys some examples of that. This one obviously is going to give me a nice round shape. Now, the things that I really like about these molds for this is that there isn't a lot of like markings on the inside. It's mostly smooth. The other thing that's super important is that there's no undercuts coming from the inside. So I don't have to worry about something getting stuck in this bowl. And the best part about these is that they're plastic, which means when I'm trying to get something out, I can bend this just ever so slightly, and that is going to make a huge difference about how that's going to go down. Now, so that works out really well for a hump mold. Now let's talk about a slump mold. Now, a slump mold would go inside, and everything that's touching the mold, it will be the part that will be visible to us later. And so you can see the downside of that in that we really can't see a lot of this, a lot of what's going on the outside when we're just sitting here with the bowls. A better option for a slump mold is going to be along the lines of like this, which again, not pretty, but, or maybe not again, this is the first time I said it. But this part right here, because it's nice and straight, it's going to come right off. And that'll make our lives a lot easier. And it doesn't need to be pretty, but from this view, from your view, not so much, but if I'm looking at it from the side, because it's so tall, I get a lot of vertical information. So this is going to be a good piece that I can actually see a lot of the design and the decoration that is going to happen on the outside when we build our coils up from the inside. Another important thing about your slump molds is they can't be too deep and they can't be too narrow. Okay, so if you can't just like put your whole fist in through the opening, your piece, the cup that you're choosing, is too narrow. Okay, now I wouldn't be able to use something like this because this one has an undercut. So everything above, so this is actually the mold line from my last mold that I made with this. And everything above this would come off this way, and everything below this has to come off this way. It won't fit, this line, which is my widest point, won't fit through the hole that is here. Okay, so I wouldn't be able to just pull it out of the mold.
So we're going to start off with our slump mold. That is the mold where the clay will be placed inside and the exterior will be exposed. So we have an edge on this, and that edge is an undercut. So we need to get rid of that undercut, and it is about 2 sticks tall. So I have a slab here that I've created that I can put this into this little edge here so that it'll actually pop out. And I'm just going to use that to create a little mark. make sure that it's sort of in the center, which not quite. So let's just smooth this out and make a little spot. But so the thing that I want you guys to remember about this slump mold is this is going to allow the coils that we put into it to be exposed on the outside. So that's why I have a taller, more vertical shape. The other thing that was important about this is that it was a plastic form, not a glass, something that's a little bit flexible. And it doesn't have any sort of foot rings or undercuts on it. This will make it all a lot easier to take out of the mold. So now I'm going to remove this little part so I can basically make like a little clay skirt around it to go over that edge. Because again, that edge is creating an undercut. Okay, so I need to smooth out this edge and make sure that I make a perfect, as close to kind of 90-degree angle as I can, going directly into the side and filling in any gaps. It's really important that you take time at this and make sure that you have a really crisp, clean connection point. You don't want to have any gaps, you don't want to have any holes. Anything like that will cause your piece to leak, or it will make for a funky looking mold. So the more time that you spend at this point, this is a good place to use your time.
To the beat, y'all. 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 To the beat, y'all.
All right, so we finished that up, and everything's all smooth and beautiful. Now I have my metal sheathing and I've put tape on it. I've made sure that I've taped that inside seam, that makes sure that none of the plastic gets out, and I've taped the outside seam as well. You want to make sure that that tape connection is very solid, and again, the full seam that you can see is gone. And then I'm going to press this down into my clay skirt to make sure that I have a nice tight closure. This is going to make it so that the slip does not, I'm sorry, so the plaster does not seep out of the side. And then I'm just going back over the edge there to seal that edge in. Again, I want to make sure that the plaster does not seep out. I need about 2 fingers height on there, which actually this tool is going to work out great. So I'll just set that down, find myself my marker, and mark that point on the inside of the metal sheathing so that way it does not, I don't waste plaster and I don't have more plaster than what I need, but I also don't have too little plaster. Now I've mixed up my plaster, a little quick fast forward, and that's the mound that you should get with a dry lake bed sort of thing, and like a little patch of like stuff that's still dry, but very dry lake bed, not like sinking into the piece. When I pour this over, it should give you a nice consistent pour. It shouldn't come out like clumpy or anything like that. I'm also making sure that when I pour over this, I'm just covering it, I'm letting it run over the surface of the piece. That'll help get rid of any bubbles that might want to stick to the surface or something like that. And then I'm going to pour it right up to that edge. You can see that little black mark almost gone. And that's going to be great. Now I have leftover plaster, which is going to make it fabulous for the fact that we also need to create our hump mold. So remember, our slump mold is the clay is going inside the form, and our hump mold, the clay is going to go outside of the form. So now I need to pick out which one that I want to do. I have my football one. And then I have my yellow curvy one. I swear it's not because it's yellow. I just want the round form. I already have one of the football ones. And I'm going to pour the rest of the plaster into this and try to fill it up. Oh, look at that. Perfect. I love it when things work together. And now this stuff that's left over, I'm just going to pour a little bit of water in here. Remember, this doesn't go down your drain. And I'm going to rinse it, just that small amount of water. I'm going to rinse all of the stuff off in my bucket so that I can get the majority of it off, because I want to continue to use this bucket. I don't want the plaster to dry in said bucket because that'll ruin it. So I'm going to get off as much as I can, and then I'm actually going to pour this back into my little water container because that is my my plaster water. Okay, so and you can see it's filthy, which is fine. It's exactly what we're going for. And now this I can just kind of like rinse out into the dirt, and it's not gonna it'll all go away. It'll be fine. But do not put it in your sink. Okay, so now we've waited for 45 minutes. I know, you could totally tell. And I'm going to pop this out. And this is why I really like having a flexible mold, because it's so much easier to get the form out. Suction just loves to keep the glass, it stuck in the glass, and having that little bit of flexibility makes a huge difference. And look at how shiny and beautiful that is. Super exciting. So let's check our other mold and see how that's doing. So it's nice and hard. And I can take off all of this clay. Now, as long as there's no plaster on my clay, I can reuse it, but like any of these little crumbs, those have to go. You don't want to mix plaster into your clay. So be very careful about that. If you are certain, then it's fine, but when in doubt, throw it out, guys. We don't want to recycle that, anything like that. The plaster just ends up in our clay and leaves like little chunks. It doesn't dissolve down, like it's a pain. All right, let's see if I can get rid of the leftover clay. Because what I want to get to is my taped edge. So I got my X-Acto knife because this will make my life a little bit easier. Don't cut yourself, guys. And we'll just cut along the seam. And remember, I have 2 seams. So this is my outer seam. And so hence the tape is out there, and I have to disconnect it from the top too. I don't need to really worry about the tape that's on the inside. That's not doing anything. Okay, and now I have to cut this other one, which is a little bit trickier because it's the cut that I need to make is actually on the inside of this. So I'm going to be patient-ish, and cut into this little side area here. And it's good and stuck because of the tape part of it, so that's good. If it was loose, we would have leaked all over the place anyways. All right, now that I have a little bit of the start. Now, try not to bend your metal too far out of whack, so that way we can reuse it easily. But there you go. All right, so that side wall is looking beautiful. I'm very excited, nice and shiny. Now we're going to take the rest of this clay off. Now here's where the tricky part comes in. Because this is a much longer form, it is going to be kind of tricky to get this out. And you might not be able to get it out easily on your own. As I'm doing this, I can see little sections where it's coming unstuck from the sides. Like it's totally not undercut in there, but it's not going to give it up easily. If you are having difficulty and you cannot get your mold form out, so the best thing to do that is compressed air. If I can get some compressed air in there, then it's going to come out great. And I'm talking like with a compressor, compressed air, not like your can of like air cleaner or something like that. So if you've taken some time, tried to pull this out, and you just can't get it, then what I'd like you to do is just bring it into the next pickup and drop off, and we can take it over and just blow it out for you, so that it pops out like pretty quick. I'm gonna bring over the air compressor so that you guys can see what this is like. Shove it in the side there, pop right out. So that makes our lives so much easier, and it came out nice and clean. It's beautiful and shiny inside there. I'm very happy with how that turned out. Now I want to clean up all of this edge. It's pretty sharp, so I'm going to take my loop tool and just go around this edge and clean up just the corners of it, kind of round it over a little bit. So it's not quite as sharp. And then I'm going to do that on all of the outside edges too. It just makes it so that your mold's gonna like break and make less crumbs. It makes things nice. Do this if you can. Do this while it's still on the wetter side, and it's going to be a lot easier. If you're doing it on the drier side, your Sureform is going to be great. But right now, the plaster is still relatively soft in terms like it hasn't fully cured until it's lost its heat. And right now, this piece is actually pretty warm. Okay, so that's like looking good. I have my inside. I'm going to clean out these crumbs with a little bit of air. Close your eyes. So that it doesn't dry on the inside there. And now we are looking at our, this is our Slump mold. It goes inside with exposed coils on the outside. And this is our Hump mold that will go on the outside with exposed coils on the interior.